Welcome to a special, highly comprehensive deep dive into the heart, the strategy, and the unyielding spirit of Philippine basketball. Today, we are unpacking a narrative that has captured the attention of every single Gilas Pilipinas fan, a storyline that transcends the mere X's and O's of the hardwood and delves straight into the psychological mastery of one of the greatest minds in the history of the sport, Coach Tim Cone. The breaking news, the headline that has set the sports world ablaze, centers on the upcoming regional battles, specifically looking at the landscape of the Southeast Asian Games and the crucial FIBA windows. It is a stage that the Philippines has historically dominated, but one that has recently transformed into an absolute battlefield, a true test of our basketball supremacy. The headline we are dissecting today reads, "Fair Fight at the SEA Games. Coach Tim made Junmar an example in Kai's absence in Gilas." This is not just a passing comment in a post-game press conference. This is a foundational shift in team culture. It is a tactical pivot, a profound statement about resilience, and a masterclass in leadership. For decades, the Southeast Asian Games represented a guaranteed gold medal for the Philippines. It was a venue where we could send collegiate stars, amateur standouts, or a hastily assembled group of pros, and still expect to win by 30 or 40 points. But the region has caught up. Thailand has heavily invested in its program and naturalized talent. Indonesia, under former Gilas tacticians, has cracked the code and previously snatched the gold from our grasp. The days of the guaranteed blowout are over. We are now in the era of the fair fight. And heading into this new era of intense regional parity, Gilas Pilipinas faces a monumental hurdle. The absence of our 7'3" prodigy, the defensive anchor and offensive mismatch Kai Sato. Whether due to commitments in the Japan B-League, concussion protocols, or the grueling toll of international travel, the reality is stark. Gilas must march into battle without its towering sentinel. In the modern international game, where rim protection and vertical spacing are paramount, losing a player Kai's magnitude could be a death knell for a team's defensive schemes and offensive fluidity. The towering safety net is gone. The lob threat that collapses opposing defenses is missing. But this is where the genius of Coach Tim Cone steps into the spotlight. Instead of lamenting the absence of his young star, Cone has weaponized the situation to forge an unbreakable team culture. He has turned to his most trusted veteran, the cornerstone of Philippine basketball for the last decade, the 9-time Philippine Basketball Association Most Valuable Player, Junmar. Coach Cone hasn't just asked Junmar to carry a heavier load. He has publicly and emphatically made the Kraken the ultimate example of sacrifice, conditioning, and unwavering dedication. He is sending a message to the rest of the roster, from the seasoned veterans to the youngest rookies. If the most decorated player in the history of the country can put his head down, absorb the physical punishment, and adapt to the grueling demands of carrying the front line alone, then nobody else has an excuse. This deep dive is going to explore every single facet of this dynamic. We're going to break down what a fair fight actually means in the modern landscape of Southeast Asian and Asian basketball. We will analyze the tactical void left by Kai Sato and exactly how opposing teams attempt to exploit it. We will examine the immense, almost superhuman burden placed on the broad shoulders of Junmar, analyze his conditioning, his post-gravity, and his evolution as a playmaker. And most importantly, we will dissect the psychological warfare and team-building brilliance of Coach Tim Cone, a man who understands that championships are won not just with talent, but with culture, continuity, and an unbreakable collective will. Settle in, because this is the anatomy of Gilas Pilipinas in its most crucial hour. To truly understand the gravity of Coach Tim Cone's strategy, we first have to understand the battleground. When we use the term fair fight in the context of the SEA Games or regional Asian qualifiers, is a phrase laden with historical irony. For the longest time, whenever the Philippines stepped onto a basketball court in Southeast Asia, it was inherently an unfair fight. We had the deeper talent pool, the entrenched basketball culture, the superior coaching infrastructure, and the sheer physical advantage. The Gilas program was the undisputed Goliath, and the rest of the region played the role of David, albeit rarely finding the slingshot needed to pull off an upset. However, the tectonic plates of regional basketball have shifted dramatically. Neighboring countries recognize that the gap could not be closed through grassroots development alone, at least not quickly. They began aggressive naturalization programs. They hired elite international coaching consultants. They started sending their top players to overseas leagues, exposing them to higher levels of competition, physical play, and advanced tactical systems. Teams like Thailand, Indonesia, and even Vietnam are no longer intimidated by the word Pilipinas across a jersey. They have scouted our tendencies. They understand our reliance on isolation scoring, and they have built physical, bruising front lines specifically designed to wear down our big men. Therefore, when Coach Tim Cohn and the Gilas coaching staff prepare for these tournaments, they operate under a new paradigm. They know that if they do not bring their absolute best, the games will be grinders. They will be trench warfare. A fair fight means that talent alone will no longer secure a 30-point blowout. It means that execution, defensive rebounding, transition defense, and half-court discipline are the only things standing between a gold medal and a national heartbreak. And going into a fair fight without your biggest weapon drastically changes the calculus. Let's speak candidly about what Kai Sato provides, and consequently, what is lost in his absence. Standing at 7'3" with incredible mobility for his size, Kai represents a modern basketball unicorn for the Philippine national team. Offensively, he provides vertical spacing. In Coach Tim Cohn's system, having a player who can catch a lob cleanly out of a pick and roll forces the opposing defense to drop their center deep into the paint. This defensive collapse opens up the perimeter for shooters like Calvin Oftana, Marcio Lassiter, or Justin Brownlee. Defensively, Kai allows Gilas to play a much more aggressive style on the perimeter. Guards like Chris Newsom and C.J. Perez can press opposing ball handlers tightly, fighting over screens with the confidence that if they get beaten off the dribble, a 7'3" rim protector is waiting in the paint to erase the mistake. This drop coverage scheme is heavily reliant on the sheer wingspan and timing of the center. When Kai is absent, that safety net vanishes. The entire defensive geometry changes. Opposing guards become braver, driving into the lane with the intent to score rather than just looking to kick out. The Gilas perimeter defenders have to play slightly more conservative, giving up a half step to prevent blow-bys, which in turn can lead to more contested but makeable jump shots to the opposition. Furthermore, the absence of Kai severely limits Coach Cohn's ability to play the highly effective Twin Towers lineup. When Kai and Junmar share the floor, Gilas presents a matchup nightmare. Kai's ability to step out and hit the mid-range jumper allows Junmar to operate freely in the low block. Without Kai, the opposing defense can laser focus all of their big man resources on containing Fajardo. Enter Junmar Fajardo. It is almost impossible to overstate the importance of Fajardo to the Philippine basketball ecosystem. He is a 9-time PBA MVP, a gentle giant who has dominated the domestic league with a combination of brute strength, incredible footwork, and a soft touch around the rim. But international basketball is a different beast. The pacing is faster. The opposing centers are often bigger and stronger, and the officiating allows for a much more physical brand of defense in the post. In the absence of Kai Sato, Fajardo transitions from being a co-star in the front court to the undisputed anchor. He is forced to absorb double teams, fight through relentless physical denial in the post, and still find the energy to sprint back on defense to protect the rim. This is where Coach Tim Cohn's psychological genius shines. Cohn did not just tell Junmar to play harder. He elevated Junmar's work ethic to a pedestal, making him the living, breathing standard for the rest of the Gilas roster. When Coach Cohn publicly highlights Junmar as an example, he is executing a multi-layered motivational strategy. First, he is validating Fajardo's incredible sacrifice. At his age, with his history of lower body injuries, banging in the post against younger, highly athletic international big men takes a massive toll. Cohn acknowledging this publicly gives Fajardo the emotional fuel to keep grinding. Second, and more importantly, Cohn is looking at the rest of the team, the athletic wings, the speedy guards, the young forwards, and sending a clear message. Look at our 9-time MVP. Look at our most decorated player. He is diving for loose balls. He is fighting through quadruple teams without complaining to the referees. He is executing the defensive rotations perfectly. If he is willing to sacrifice his body and his ego for the system, what excuse do you have? This is the essence of leadership by proxy. Cohn is using Fajardo's quiet, relentless professionalism to police the locker room. If a younger player is dogging it in transition defense, they don't just have to answer to Coach Cone. They have to look at an exhausted Junmar Fajardo, who just sprinted the length of the floor, and answer to him. From a purely tactical standpoint, missing Kai Sato forces Coach Tim Cone to adjust his offensive playbook. Cone is famous for his mastery of the triangle offense, a system predicated on spacing, ball movement, reading the defense, and creating strong side isolation opportunities in the post. When both Kai and Junmar are available, Cone can utilize high-low actions within the triangle. Kai can operate at the high post, reading the defense and delivering pinpoint passes to Junmar sealed deep in the paint. It is a terrifying action that most Asian teams simply do not have the size to defend. Without Kai, the high post action usually falls to a player like A.J. Edu, Quentin Miller-Brown, or even Justin Brownlee. While they are highly capable, they do not present the same overwhelming height advantage. Therefore, the offense shifts. It requires Junmar to be even more efficient with his touches. He cannot afford to take bad shots because the offensive rebounding opportunities decrease without Kai crashing the weak side. The offense also demands more from the perimeter players. Guards like Scotty Thompson and C.J. Perez must be sharper with their entry passes, ensuring Junmar gets the ball exactly where he wants it before the double team arrives. Furthermore, Coach Cone emphasizes Fajardo's playmaking. The Kraken is not just a black hole in the post. He has developed exceptional court vision. When the defense inevitably collapses on him in a fair fight scenario, he must act as a hub, kicking the ball out to the weak side for open three-pointers. Coach Cone has built a system where Junmar's gravity creates the offense for everyone else. By making Fajardo the example, Cone is ensuring that every player cutting off the ball or spotting up on the perimeter is doing so with maximum intensity, honoring the work Fajardo is doing inside. What this entire situation reveals is the mental fortitude required to play for Gilas Pilipinas today. The pressure is suffocating. The entire nation expects dominance, yet the reality on the ground is a grueling battle against vastly improved regional rivals. Every missed rotation, every blown defensive assignment is magnified. Coach Tim Cone's decision to highlight Junmar Fajardo is ultimately about establishing a culture of accountability and resilience. It is an acknowledgement that the team cannot rely on sheer overwhelming talent to bail them out. They cannot simply wait for a 7'3" savior to block every shot. They have to play fundamental, gritty, unified basketball. They have to adopt the mindset of Fajardo. Quiet, humble, yet ruthlessly effective. They have to understand that a fair fight is won in the margins. It is won by boxing out properly. It is won by making the extra pass. It is won by executing the defensive game plan for a full 24 seconds, not just 20. When the team embraces this mentality, the absence of Kai Sato transforms from an excuse for failure into a catalyst for collective growth. As we wrap up this extensive deep dive, we have to pull back and look at the grand tapestry of what this all means for the future of Philippine basketball. The narrative surrounding Gilas Pilipinas at the SEA Games and in these FIBA qualifying windows is no longer just a story about who is on the roster and who is missing. It has evolved into a profound study of adaptation, coaching brilliance, and the sheer force will embodied by our veteran players. The headline, Fair Fight at the SEA Games. Coach Tim made Junmar an example in Kai's absence, will likely be remembered as a defining philosophical moment in this era of the national team. It represents the exact moment when the program fully accepted that the landscape of Asian basketball has fundamentally changed. The days of coasting to victory on the back of overwhelming natural talent and height advantages are over. The rest of the region has put on their armor, sharpened their swords, and they are standing right in front of us, ready for a fair fight. And in the face of that challenge, without the luxury of our towering young prodigy, Coach Tim Cone did not panic. He did not make excuses to the media about missing personnel. Instead, he pointed to the biggest, hardest-working man in the room, Junmar Fajardo, and said, "Follow him." This is the ultimate testament to Fajardo's legacy. Long after he retires, long after his 9 or perhaps more MVP trophies have gathered dust, he will be remembered not just for the points he scored or the rebounds he grabbed, but for being a rock upon which Coach Cone anchored the national team during a period of intense turbulence. By taking on the physical beating of playing the five-spot solo against aggressive international competition and doing it with absolute grace and professionalism, Junmar is teaching the next generation of Gilas players what it truly means to wear the flag across their chest. Looking ahead, the eventual return of Kai Sato will undoubtedly elevate the ceiling of this team to incredible heights. The chemistry between Fajardo and Sato is a terrifying prospect for any opponent in the world. But until that day comes, the lessons learned in this crucible will remain. The resilience forged in these fair fights, the defensive discipline demanded by Coach Cone, and the work ethic exemplified by Junmar Fajardo have permanently upgraded the DNA of this squad. Gilas Pilipinas is learning how to win not just when conditions are perfect, but when their backs are against the wall, when the roster is depleted, and when the opposition is fearless. That is how champions are truly built. That is the essence of Puso. It is not just a marketing catchphrase. It is a grueling, sweat-soaked reality of a team fighting for every single inch of the hardwood. Thank you for joining me on this incredibly detailed journey through the tactics, the psychology, and the heart of Gilas Pilipinas. We have explored the depths of the triangle offense, the nuances of international defense, and the profound leadership of Coach Tim Cone and Junmar Fajardo. As the team continues to battle on the international stage, keep your eyes on the margins, watch the off-ball movements, and appreciate the silent sacrifices happening in the paint.